Andromedan contactee Alex Collier has had his face-to-face contacts with blue-skinned human ETs from the Andromeda constellation and the Andromeda galaxy, which have included multiple visits aboard their tremendous motherships and decades of telepathic contact. Alex talks of the Andromedan civilization and their council, to which the Palladian ETs appealed for assistance in dealing with a dangerous, malevolent ET confederation plaguing humanity and much of the galaxy. Alex describes in detail the members of this malevolent ET confederation, consisting of reptilian ETs from Alpha Draconis, the Orion group, and the Grey ETs from Zeta Reticuli 2. And it appears that Alpha Draconan reptilian ETs have been manipulating humanity into a nearly invisible system of servitude for eons even, feeding off our labour and our bodies through the wars that they instigate and the hostile belief systems which they foster in the form of religious and social institutions. Alex's life has also been threatened 9 times.
There you go. So, obviously has very good information to talk about. Good evening, Alex. How are you?
I'm great, guys. How are you?
Brilliant stuff. Alex, thanks a lot for coming on. Much appreciated. The bio that we just read out there is probably very, very brief, because we know you have one hell of a background and your knowledge and experience of things that you've been involved in. Is there anything that you want to add to that before we move on?
It's all been said in previous recordings and radio and interviews and talks.
Should we go through?
It's. I think with anyone, when they say old souls.
Yeah.
We're not necessarily talking about age. What we're referring to is experience in physicality. Let's say, in particular, third density. When you say someone's an old soul, the reference really means they've acquired a great deal of wisdom from trials and tribulations. Because it's usually, the people that are really good to you and love you give you love and happiness, and the people who are really mean and cruel to you bring you experience. So that's kind of, that's maybe the only thing I could add to that is, not only in this life but many other lives, us old souls, we've garnered and gained a great deal of experience. And as I was joking with you earlier, it is not necessarily the years, but the mileage.
Very good, very good. And you're obviously a believer in reincarnation of learning lessons. Is that something that you'd go with?
Everybody does. There is no avoiding that. You may have a particular lifetime that's very easy and you just kind of cruise through it. But that doesn't mean in the next one or the one after that, you get to skate through as well. It's all about learning. It's all about growing. It's all about, learning how to exercise power, when to do it, when not to. Living in experience is about empathy, learning compassion, learning responsibility, the ability to create our reality and to do it responsibly. The list is endless as to all of our reasons for being in physicality.
Okay, tell me something. Obviously, people have talked about the whole reincarnation side of things, and there is a belief out there, going around that the Archons have basically controlled that as well. So when you actually die and you see the light at the end of the tunnel, or the light, this is archonic, which basically they take your soul or your spirit and they turn you around, and then you're put back out again down the line, and they have a control. And some people are saying that there's a way of getting through this grid, that when you do die, that there's a way of getting out, because the planet is now kind of like a prison planet, and there's certain people that say they have there's borders or there's gates around the planet where they're not letting anybody out because of what's going on. What's your take on that side of things?
There definitely is something to that. One of the things that I was told many, many years ago by Phaseus before he passed away or left their physicality was that if one wanted to be free of the reincarnational cycle of the earth, that when you crossed over and you left your body, instead of making the decision to go to the light or allow yourself to be drawn into the light, which is that system that you were just referring to,
Okay.
that you turn around and all you have to do is, when you turn around, you'll see the entire universe, and all you have to do is make the decision, I want to go home. And bam, you are there. And now you're free of Earth's reincarnational cycle. It's over.
So you have to be aware of that, though, before you pass over.
That is exactly right. You
Right.
exactly have to be aware of it.
And do you not become like an earthbound spirit instead if you don't go to the light and you stay kind of earthbound?
You know, the whole ghost thing, that's pretty interesting. Those are people who didn't make a decision one way or the other. And what they've done as spirits is they've trapped themselves in higher third density, lower fourth density, because they didn't make a choice. And now they're kind of stuck. And how they get freed from that position, I don't know. Visayas and Mornay wouldn't address that, and I don't know the reasons why. I know that there are times that they would not answer a question for me because they said someone else was meant to bring that information forward. So maybe that's what that is.
Okay. Are you still in communication with the Pleiadians? Or who do you speak to now? Who do you link up with?
I've never spoken to the Pleiadians.
Oh, okay.
I have seen them on occasion on motherships, or who I was told were Pleiadians, but I've never spoken to them directly. I only speak to the Zenitaians from the constellation of Andromeda, specifically Mornay. It was Visayas, but he crossed over at 4,381 years.
Okay.
In their time.
And have they told you about this? We hear about the energy that's hitting the planet and changing the Schumann frequency, and it's a high energy, and that some people can adapt to it and other people won't adapt to it, depending on your own vibration and your energy. Have you been told anything about this?
Yes. As far as the vibration, everything is frequency. In the DVD and the book, The Secret, I suppose, from what I've heard, they were asked to take out the word frequency. They weren't allowed to use that word, but that's the magic word. Everything is frequency.
Yeah.
And we're nothing but radio tuners. So the higher your frequency, the more channels you bring in. And we're talking about cosmic knowledge, cosmic energy, which of course we are all a part of, even if we're dumb as a brick. We are still pulling in some of that energy. It's just that, you're not tapping into the knowledge and the wisdom.
Okay.
Just basically the life force. And then the ego takes over, and many people are operating strictly on ego and not spiritual higher self. So, this frequency that's coming, one of the reasons it's finally hitting us in such a magnificent way is because the net, the barrier, the field that was put up to separate us from that knowledge has been taken down. The benevolent ETs burned it to the ground, which is to give you the best analogy. So it's no longer up, which is why we're seeing this huge sense of awakening. There were many holes in it put in over the years, but just recently the whole thing came down. So now what's happening is that many people are waking up, even those in the lower minion management areas of the New World Order, or whatever you want to call it, the powers that be, the regressive hierarchy. Those who thought they were in for one reason are now realizing they're in for another. And of course, this is creating a lot of stability for those guys at the very top, who aren't us and really don't give a damn about humanity at all.
Yeah.
So it's positive. Not only that, but it's also having an effect on our DNA. It is absolute scientific proof that some children and some adults now have third strands of DNA, and it's changing dramatically. And we used to live longer lives one portion of our DNA that was turned off by the Anunnaki was the fact that our bodies used to be able to create vitamin C on their own. When they turned that off, it dramatically changed our life cycles.
Okay.
And they did it on purpose, because then we were easily controlled. And for a while there, we were becoming equal to them, because we're very astute, we're excellent learners, and we are extremely creative and very, very adaptable because of all the DNA we have in us from different races. So, we're sort of a Heinz 57, but at the same time, we're genetic royalty, and that scares a lot of races because we have literally unlimited potential. And some races, for some reason, see us as a threat. And it might be the ones that have been hurting and suppressing us and enslaving us all these years. And they would be right. I think once we woke up, we would definitely be pissed off enough to want to, address the issue directly.
What do you think? What do you think the chain of command is, or who's in the chain of command regarding the, from draconians to the archons to the global elites? What way do you see it, panning out from a hierarchical level?
That's an excellent question. Regressive ETs, I don't necessarily think they're all reptilians. Some of them could be human hybrids. Some of them could also be other different types of races who we would consider humanoid. Who the actual ones at the very, very top, the 4 or 5 that I understand that basically have the final decision, or who create the holographic structure that controls humanity, I can't honestly say. And I think there's a reason why. Okay, let me just say, there are some questions that I've asked, and Morine said it would be better if you didn't know. And at a later date, I asked him, well, why wouldn't you tell me these things? He goes, because we know you will tell the people, and that would put you in very serious jeopardy. So there are some questions they don't address to me, and that's the only explanation I get. And I know when they say that they can't address it, or they won't address it, I know to move on, because I've tried for years to get some very specific information about myself, and they won't address it. They want me to discover that portion for myself, and it's taken me a long time to get past that, and now I actually appreciate it, because now I have greater depth into my own being and who I am. And had I not done the work myself, I wouldn't be in the place I am today. There's the easy way, and then there's the hard way, or the right way, excuse me. And many times the right way is the hard way. So.
But some people, get to a stage, and I'm sure they have, where enough's enough, and maybe they decide to, leave this plane prematurely because they've had enough. And as I say, a lot of people have said to me that they're at a stage now where they're feeling tired because, how just the fight, they're the fighting and the fighting and the fighting, and they're not seeing any results. Now, I know that the global elites, or the New World Order, whatever name you want to call them, are really speeding things up and trying to get it in because of the mass awakening that's going on. Would you kind of agree with that?
Oh, I absolutely would. They're definitely trying to get ahead of it. Currently, they're a little bit behind, I think, which is why their timetable has been moved up, and they're scrambling, and they're getting more and more desperate, for lack of a better word. As far as to address people getting tired, I can tell you that on a spiritual level, nothing tires or wanes the soul more than poverty.
Yeah.
And this is why the whole monetary system was instituted, because there is a significant amount of very evolved spiritual beings here who have chosen to come in and help humanity. And in our previous experiences in other worlds, the experience was different because we didn't have a monetary system. So to many of us, to experience a monetary system in this life and at the same time, have to go to battle with these dark forces, it's a great deal of work, and many of us just simply don't have the experience in doing it. Having to survive every single day just to eat or just to have to pay rent or to support our children. And as we were talking before the show about, taxes and, governments make all these absolutely ridiculous decisions. I mean, just absolute asinine, showing no common sense whatsoever. And then they turn around and say, well, you're going to pay for our mistake. And then they absolve themselves of any culpability. Who wouldn't get tired of that nonsense? You couldn't do that. They throw you out, put you on the street, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, the system isn't fair. It's not rigged. And I think by our very nature, we try to be very fair, and we try to keep things, the playing field level at all times and give people the benefit of the doubt. But unfortunately, the dark side, they don't play by any rules. They make shit up as they go along. And we're always having to try to catch up to what they're doing now. But things are coming to a head. They absolutely are. We're not alone in this battle, and there is a great deal of pushback coming from off the planet, outside the planet, in our solar system and in other solar systems in the galaxy. So, for the record, the frequency of the galaxy is changing. It is, in fact, going up. So, not to offend anybody, but these pricks, they're going to have to go somewhere else, and they will be. It's just certain things are playing themselves out, and they're kind of using humanity as a hostage at the moment.
Well, we're talking about that because obviously on the likes of TV series like Star Trek, they talk about the Prime Directive and not to go near certain planets that have a certain race on it. But and that's all great from say a spiritually aware and advanced ET race or alien race, but the negatives like the Draconians and the Archons don't seem to be bothered about any Prime Directive, and they're just going straight in. And what we've said this before on the show, where we know that we have to put up a fight and we have to fight the system. That's fair enough. But if they're using machine guns and we're using bow and arrows, it's it's kind of unfair,
It is. Of course, it's unfair. But let me give you a little background here. Earth used to be spiritually evolved. During Lemuria, the beginning of Atlantis, the consciousness of the planet was very, very high. It was then corrupted, and significantly through steps of creating religions, creating wars, creating different languages to separate humanity over the last, 100-something thousand years. The frequency of the consciousness of the beings on the surface, in the planet, and the planet itself have been significantly lowered. It was an intentional attack to do that. Okay, so, and the fact that many of us here have other extraterrestrial DNA in us, that gives benevolent races the right to intervene because they spiritually and genetically are connected to Earth. So they have a right to do that. Now, if they were to eliminate all of these genetic seeds, this would eliminate the ability for other races to intervene. So, keep that in the back of your mind because that's important. When you hear that, they want to terminate, 9/10 of the Earth's population. Okay?
Yeah.
And they already know who they want to save. So, they're just pricks.
Well, are they terraforming the planet for themselves? Is that why we're getting all this? Obviously the planet changing, like the likes of Fukushima, animals dying, and all that, because it's terraforming to what they want.
Well, I'm not too sure about the nuclear radiation part, but I think what they're doing is they have technology to clean the planet, virtually clean the planet of all of this, probably within 30 to 60 days. The technology exists. The alien technology exists to do that, to restore the air, the water, etc. They even have machines that they could drop into the ocean and they could change the water from salt water to fresh water.
Wow.
They have this type of technology, okay? So that's not the issue. I think what it is that they want to keep our spiritual vibration so low by creating fear and saying, look, there's just too many of you. We need to cleanse the planet, or even worse, some of you may have to go and live on another planet. So we want to take you off this world. When the shit hits the fan, we want to take you off this world and bring you to another Earth. Well, the group that's here, that is not their agenda. Their agenda is to beam you up into a lunchbox. And I don't know how else to say this. Okay? That's what they want. You surrender your free will, and they will beam you up into a lunchbox. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about, then I can't help you. Well, so you should never do that.
We've had Stephanie Ralph on, and we have talked about this, and Stephanie said the same thing. All the movies that are out there, even the black and white movie How to Serve Man in the 60s, was a cookbook. And then you have Jupiter Ascending, a movie talking about, the humans being food. So it's a subject that we talked about before, and the whole thing that they need your consent. You have to agree to it, because is there some spiritual or universal rule which they agree to, that they would tell us what they're doing, and if we don't dispute what they're doing or disagree with it, or we consent to it, then they can do what they want.
That's exactly right. I mean, you have the Pope, you have the Queen of England, and others saying, these are the end times. Well, why would anyone, if you read Scripture, who's at the end times for? It's the end times for the bad guys. But why would we invest anything into an end time scenario? I'm not ready to go. My children aren't ready to go. Why would we even buy into that nonsense? We're the ones creating this reality. They need our frequency. They need our focus to create this scenario. And if we just tell them, go to hell, we're not doing that. We're going in this direction to create light, to create peace, to create harmony, to create compassion, to create abundance. We can just starve these bastards and they'll have to leave anyway, because it's all about frequency.
Okay.
And that's all we can do.
Okay, and what about timelines? Have you looked into timelines at all and seen where we're going? Because we've heard rumours that they've tried to change the actual timeline to suit their needs, and every time they do it, like nature, it just resorts back to the timeline we're supposed to be on.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And they've tried to manipulate that with alternate timelines, and one of those has collapsed, and one of the most negative that they created is actually, I think, pretty much merged with this one, which, fascism was everywhere on the planet, and that's not hard to see.
Yeah.
So, but, we're getting a lot of help with that. But as far as timelines, it's very difficult to actually narrow anything down to a timeline, even the extraterrestrials, because it's being created. Events and the reality of consciousness is being created every single day, every single moment by us. We're the kingpins here. Humanity is the kingpin here. We're the ones holding this together. It would just be so nice if we could all get on the same page just once, for a few weeks or a few months or even a couple of years. Just everybody be on the same page, and then we wouldn't allow ourselves to be manipulated by governments, by the press, by religions. What a bunch of crock of horse shit. And you can obviously tell I feel very strongly about this.
Yeah,
because I have been battling this for years.
Yeah.
Not only me, but so many other speakers and researchers who have done remarkable work trying to tell people, hey, wake up. This is all a crock of shit.
Yeah. And of course, as you say, because of our DNA and who we are uniquely to the ETs and the negatives, we have the ability to manifest, which is what they want as well, I believe.
Yes, of course. Well, that puts them in control.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about, and that's what it's always been about. Listen, something very important. The Archons, they are artificial intelligence. They're AI.
Okay.
Okay? So when you look at the decisions that they make, you have to look at it from a different perspective. You're not dealing with beings that have soul. That means they're not capable of compassion.
Okay. Well, they're like politicians then. Same thing. So where does
that's a scary thought, isn't it?
Well, we politicians over here who don't have any souls and they have no compassion, trust me, I think we can all relate to that. Have you had any information or looked at black goo at all?
No, I've not had the ability. I have very limited internet access, unfortunately. I can only get it when I go to the library. And that's usually just for a couple hours a day if I'm lucky to get on.
Yeah.
So
okay, well that's
no, I've heard about it, but no, I don't have any definitive information on it.
That's okay. One of the questions I said before we went live, we've had 3 guests on the show, and who do their own research and have their own contacts to ETs, and basically they've said to us, in their own words, that they believe that there is a percentage of people on the planet who will be, for want of a better word, saved because of, its service to others and their energy is right and everything else. What's your take on that? Do you believe there is a percentage, or there are people on the planet who, if there is kind of, and I want to talk to you about Planet X and the planetary changes that are taking place at the moment, but do you believe there is a percentage that would be saved, for want of a better word?
Well, my experience with the A's is that they're interested in trying to save anyone who wants to be free. I don't know anything about a percentage. Their goal is to free humanity, all of humanity. Now, whether people choose that themselves or not, that's entirely up to the individual. But, they're not looking to save a percentage. They're looking to save all of humanity, or as much of humanity that they can, barring infringing on anyone's free will. So I don't know anything about that scenario where they're going to, catch you, pick you up, or do a rapture or anything like that and say, okay, we're going to protect you, but not the rest of humanity. That scenario doesn't feel good, and it's never felt good to me.
Okay. And what about the actual climate changes that are taking place globally? I mean, we know they have HARP technology, and there's been quite a lot of talk about HARP, and we've seen weather patterns and conditions taking place that have never been seen before, never been recorded. What do you think is going on there?
I think it's all technological manipulation. That's exactly what I think. I think they have an agenda, and what they want to do is to try to make the Earth as sick as possible and lower her vibration as much as possible, so that they have an excuse and they can convince people, okay, folks, you need to leave these corridors of the planet. We need to move all of you into the inner cities. Oh, wait a minute. There's not enough room for everybody. So, we need to eliminate everyone over this age because they're useless eaters. They're unproductive, and, half of you are going to have to go to make room for the rest.
Yeah. Well, Georgia Guidestones, that's really what you're referring to, where you have the 500 million. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, they have to telegraph everything.
Yeah.
But, we don't have to buy it. We absolutely don't have to buy it. But, people need to be literally conscious of all this stuff every day and all of their decisions. And, people are starting to come around. What that number is, I honestly don't know at the moment. But, the dark side is literally forcing everyone to wake up. And I'm hoping that with the help of the benevolence, that we're going to outrun these idiots. I really do. I really hope we're going to outrun them, and that humanity is at some point going to have this aha moment, whatever that looks like, and we're just going to put our hand up and say, no, we're done with this. You need to go.
Yeah.
You need to go. We will be responsible for ourselves without you manipulating us anymore. And, we have the capabilities of doing that. humanity, Abraham Lincoln used to say when he had a very difficult time making decisions that he would leave it up to the people because of their innate common sense. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's just not an American thing. That's a global thing. Everyone has an innate ability amount of common sense to know what's right, to know what's wrong, to know what we should do, what we shouldn't do, to what's bullshit, what isn't. We all have that tuner. And in some it's greater and in others it's not. But we all have that ability to tune into common sense and know what's the right thing to do. And, that moment is coming. It's going to be forced upon all of us, because, we're not separate from each other, whether we live in different nations, whether we have different creeds, different, facial features, skin tones. We are still one race, whether you like it or not.
Well, I always say, Alex, that we are spiritual beings in physical form experiencing life. I mean, we are all spiritual beings. We might all look different, the governments and the powers to be create borders. We didn't create borders in our mind. They created the borders, and they created the different countries and calling people different races and stuff like that. We're all spiritual beings at the end of the day, I think. And one of the things that's been proven time and time again, kids aren't born racist, or they're not born with bad attitudes. It's it's a learned procedure, it's a learned process from the environment that they're in.
Yes, that's exactly right. It's exactly right. I have no argument with that whatsoever. But nonetheless, those things do exist, and for those who do carry those frequencies or those blinds, we still have to address it. We still have to address them and say, look, you still have a choice here to let go of that horse, to drop all that nonsense, because there's nothing to it. You can change any belief system by creating another belief system, or by choosing a different belief system, one that benefits everyone, not just, many of these decisions are based on fear of things that aren't even real. So, we still have to address all those people that have those blinds, because they deserve the opportunity to let them go, to see it for what it really is, nothing but a control mechanism and a manipulation.
Exactly. And it's all negative. It's all forced. We had Mark Stevens on last week, and we talked all about the legal and the law, and he made a very relevant point, and he said everything the government does is forced. And basically, if you were to coerce or use extortion or threaten people or beat people up, you would go to jail. But because you have this body called the government, they can force you and coerce you and do everything they want because they're the government, so they've made it legal to do it. So everything is forced upon us. We're forced to do things. Although people might say, like the example was the driving license, and he said, people say, oh, well, you volunteered to have a driving license. Well, if you drive your car on the road without a license, see what happens. Well, you get arrested. So that means you're forced to have a license to drive. So everything by the government is forced, and that's technically null and void from a contract point of view.
Well, that's not to say that some form of government doesn't have a place. For example, that's a whole nother scenario. That's a whole nother conversation, which I wouldn't mind having. But, here in the United States, the government of this country originally was created to represent the different states and colonies with foreign affairs. That was its sole purpose. It wasn't ever meant to become the monstrosity that it is today. So I think when you have limited forms of government that are here to actually serve and help the people, it can be a good thing. But when it takes over and the people now have to serve it, that's not a good thing. And, when people abdicate the management of their government to politicians who then get controlled by corporations and banks that have their own single agenda what you end up with is corporate fascism, corporate communism, and or corporate socialism where everyone serves the government.
Yeah.
But, that's on us. That's on us because we let down our guard. I mean, there's enough smart people on this planet that know that.
Yeah, and we have to
We
have to wake them up. What's your take on the Second Son and Planet X? A lot of talk about Planet X, Nibiru, all these kind of names, Wormwood in the Bible. What's your take on that?
Oh, it's coming. It's definitely coming. And, there is a timeline that I've been given, and the timeline, and I know this is subject to change based on what's going on out there, and I'll share with you something that I haven't shared before, but there is a timeline, and that is that mid-March, somewhere between the 16th and the 20th, the weather is supposed to get very, very extreme. And if it continues on its present trajectory, somewhere between the end of April and the beginning of May, we will all see it as it literally approaches and goes over planet Earth. Now, the benevolent groups, they've talked about trying to change this trajectory. And the only trajectory that they could change it to that wouldn't affect the Earth would dramatically affect the rest of the galaxy. In other words, changing its orbit. The problem with that, though, is that the one that would help the Earth, one of its satellites, aka moons, strikes the sun. So clearly that's not a benefit to us.
Yeah.
So they're doing a lot of planning and contingency plans to mitigate its gravitational pull on the planet. But that's not even the biggest issue, because they can mitigate that. The biggest issue is it's got a 1,000,000-mile trail of debris that our planet would go through at least 5 times over the next 5 years.
Okay.
And the debris is a real issue because they turn into comets and asteroids.
Yeah. We've heard about this. Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about plowing the road, but everyone on the surface would see this. This would not and could not be hidden anymore. So humanity, this alone would be an aha moment. They would see the intervention, and of course, this would cause an enormous amount of problems for all the governments who have been lying and suppressing all this information, all the technology for years and years and years. It would literally be humanity's mass awakening at this point.
Okay, and obviously that's going to, we've heard about this coming in. What about the likes of the pole shift? Because we've heard that there's been about, 4 or 5 times before in the past, we've gone through this. The Earth has gone through this a number of occasions, and this is now the 6th or 7th time, whatever the number is, of this pole shift that's apparently going to take place, because it's about, again, balancing the planet and putting it back on track. Do you think that will be, the Planet X coming in is part of the pole shift?
It's happened. It's happened 11 other times where the planet itself has had a pole shift. Not all of them are the result of Hercopolis, Nibiru, Planet X, whatever name you want to call it. Some of them have been just because of asteroid strikes that caused the planet to tilt. It could happen, but I know that the benevolents are trying to address that by mitigating the extreme gravitational field that this dark sun has as it crosses over us. One of the things they want to do is mitigate its grabbing our poles, which in fact causes us to flip.
Okay.
So that's being addressed. I don't know to what extent that could be, but you have to understand, the Earth has the ability over time to heal itself. We just need to learn again how to live with her, and not force her to do what we want, because that's not going to happen. We have to, again, learn to live with her like many of the native tribes and native civilizations have, before us. They had the technology. They were able to use it. The technology that's suppressed today, what Tesla created with ley lines and using free electricity, the technology exists where we can easily have what we have today without polluting the atmosphere or harming the earth. But again, the objective from these rogue groups that are controlling the planet was to lower everybody's frequency.
Yeah.
That was the plan, and that's why we have these issues today. And now they're trying to stir up all this fear, which would even lower our frequency more.
Well, there's two emotions, love or fear, and people have to choose which one they want to vibrate at.
Well, somewhere between it is neutrality.
Yeah.
So
because it's all this.
It's just not the two extremes.
Yeah, it's just it's very hard to be vibrating at 100%, even on the love side. So you have to kind of find a happy ground. But to understand what's going on, open your mind, as we say, that's why we're called Open Your Mind, and to wake up to what's going on. And one thing that was said to me by one of our guests before we had on, John Anthony Hill, was he said, our goal in life is to move away from ego and ignorance and to move towards humility and wisdom. That's all our goal, because if we move away from ego, the planet would change overnight. If we just switched off the ego, now I know ego is part of us, but we can control it rather than our ego controlling us. And the world would change overnight. Even just changing that, even realizing ego and controlling that.
Yeah, but unless you're spiritually evolved or you're working on your spiritual self, you wouldn't know the difference between your higher mind and your subconscious mind.
I
or
agree.
Your ego.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And that's part of the kind of wake-up process. But listen, we're going to go off to a few questions. We have a few questions that's come in, so we're going to quick fire them over there. I'm going to pass you over to Steve, and Steve's going to call them out to you there.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just copying and pasting the last one in there. Yeah, a lot of questions coming up on the chat room, Alex, in relation to the subject matter to hand. The first thing that I want to ask myself is when you kind of said earlier that if there was negative or extraterrestrials trying to control us and manipulate us, that we could simply just say to them, no, go away, we don't want you. That's kind of, I think that's very simplistic to say that, because there's a lot of people over here, and obviously in your country as well, who are being oppressed on a daily basis by governments, and a lot of the people, thanks to the likes of drugs, welfare system, and all crap being pumped into the sky and crap being pumped in via vaccinations, and then you also have TV as well. I don't think people couldn't even stand up to the next door neighbour and say enough. So I mean, for them to stand up to an ET race, I think it would be very, very difficult. I mean, where do you reckon that the I don't know, whatever is going to be needed to have people make that step, where's that going to come from? I know it's probably going to come from within, but if people are just so dumbed down, I think it's kind of asking a lot of people.
You're absolutely right, and I know that there are people here, or I've gotten emails in the past from people who wanted help because they were being attacked and manipulated and physically abused, mentally abused by specific extraterrestrials on a semi-regular basis. And I've tried addressing that with Morane. And his response is, we're doing the best we can to eliminate the threat to everyone. I don't know that there's a simple explanation to it, and I don't mean to be simplistic, but when I say, just say no, I'm referring to all of humanity, where we all stand together. And
but is this one of those cases, Alex, where there would have to be like let's say a 75% or even 51% of the population would have to be awake and realise what's going on? Would it have to be like a majority to say no, go away, we don't want whatever you were trying to do onto us, we don't want that? Because the way I figure it is, and probably a lot of people out there who are listening to the show this evening, we seem to be part of the minority. So, I mean, if there's only, let's say, 10% of the whole planet or the whole population of the world awake, then we are in a minority. So, I mean, you know, even that's kind of difficult. Does there, like, is there a quota or a percentage whereby there would have to be, you know where I come from, where it'd have to be, say, 75% would say, no, we don't want you to go away, and they'd say, okay, well, that's a majority, we will respect that.
Well, I've heard the same number probably of at least 10%. I believe that number is actually already higher. You know, I don't have a simple answer to this particular dilemma. I simply don't. You know, I know that when I've been screwed with, there was only one incident where it was a regressive race. That was dealt with immediately in my case, but I don't know the reasons it's not for other people's cases. So, shit, I just don't have an answer. I don't know why. I don't know why it is the way it is still.
Yeah.
But I know that intervention has occurred. I know intervention is continuing to occur, and I know they're not going to go away because we are significant to the growth of the galaxy. We serve a purpose. We serve a purpose, and whatever that purpose is, it is necessary enough that many benevolent races have left their star systems, and they are here helping us mitigate these regressives and then eventually unshackle from them and learn to stand, you know, in our own light.
Yeah, but what's in it for them, Alex? I mean, why would they leave there wherever they are to come here and help us?
I was told that sometime in the future, 800 years into the Andromedan future, our entire galaxy fell into tyranny. And all the benevolent races put teams together to go back in time and find out where this tyranny came from. And they've all traced it back to this solar system, to this time now. And if you've read Michael Sala's book regarding the extraterrestrial influence, it's his newest book. I don't remember the exact name of it. Basically what he says is that humans and our colonies, both on Mars and in other star systems, one of them being Altar, I don't know if that's in his book or not, that basically we are building these weapons for the regressives, and that they are, you know, giving them to other regressive groups to basically, you know, have a war in our galaxy.
Right. So does that mean, I mean, if I'm understanding you correctly, just to get it straight in my head, that what we're doing now has a negative effect on the world in the future. So therefore, other races have come back from the future, kind of like it sounds like kind of Back to the Future, if you know where I'm coming from, to put right a wrong that's going to happen in our lifetime. Is that it?
The expression that Morine used was to right a terrible wrong. That is exactly right. And in coming back, you know, they see this entire scenario, they realize that not only are we being used and manipulated, but we have been so suppressed that we can't even struggle to remember who we are spiritually. And they're like, whoa, you know, this is so not right. And, you know, and then you have the genetic piece, you know, that's also connected to it. So there is a lot more going on. There could be more that I'm not even aware of.
Yeah.
But what I am aware of, I have shared.
Can I just say something, Alex? We talk about disclosure, and this has been going on a while. And, you know, to be honest with you, if the benevolent ETs came down and showed themselves in the sky, the game would change tomorrow.
Well, what about the 75% or 80% that aren't awake?
Well,
what would happen to them?
Well, I pretty much believe, and you know, from the research that I've done, is that after they did the War of the Worlds in the 30s with Orson Welles, and people thought it was real, and they were running out into the lawn with the shotguns, they realised that the consciousness of the planet wasn't ready to find out about the ETs. So basically, they used Hollywood. This is what my research has brought up, that they used Hollywood to start, making movies. The first movie was financed by the military, was The Day the Earth Stood Still, the black and white movie. And then we had their Star Wars, and then we had their all the sci-fi movies and everything else. And the whole idea was to climatize and desensitize people, to get them aware. So when you ask people, do you believe in UFOs? People go, oh, of course there must be other planets with life on it. We can't be the only one. And the whole idea was to raise the planet's consciousness of the possibility of life on other planets. So when something like that does happen, that people go, oh, sure, we knew about that anyway. So I don't know what level of consciousness we are at the planet at the moment. I don't know where we are, but we are a lot further down the road than when we were in the 1930s.
Well, I would agree with that, but I can also tell you, and I've addressed this, over the last 15, 20 years, the first group of aliens we meet are not going to be friendlies.
Yeah.
They're going to pretend to be, but they're not. So if you were to take the scenario and the good guys show up, now what have you raised the vibration or have you lowered the vibration?
Mm.
So, this is a chess game that's being played on at least 3 dimensions, possibly 4, with multiple moving parts and multiple agendas.
Mm.
I don't have all the answers.
Okay, that's okay. Steve?
Yeah, no, I don't think any of us has the answers, because there's so much information. There's so much information. I mean, I know you've heard your information, Alex, and we hear different information from different guests, and some of it, it's like people are on the same page, but some of it is just kind of way out there. And actually, one of the questions that came in is kind of in relation to the information. Like Chris, one of the long-term listeners of the show, was wondering, can we ask Alex, how can he be sure that his contacts are not using him to spread false information and distract us from the real truth, whatever that may be?
Oh, well, I've tested that my whole life. And I continue to test it just so that I know, because if I'm wrong, it's all on me. I have yet to ever catch them in a lie. And if I say I want to come back, they bring me back. The only thing they don't do is when I say I want to stay with you, they won't let me do that because this is my place. They have always treated me with respect. What's interesting is that the information that they've given me that I put out 20 plus years ago, is all being confirmed now by other multiple sources. And sometimes you just have to wait and see how it goes. But the reason I took this risk without maybe having fully thought it out was because, I care. I definitely care about humanity, about us. And I've had an opportunity to be off-world and look at us in a completely different light. And I have, our behavior. I have another race in which I can compare their behavior and how they treat each other and with how we treat each other. And so I have a point of reference, and I think it's valuable. I mean, yes, we all make decisions without 100% of all the information. And sometimes we get lucky, sometimes we don't. But I feel that all the information needs to be out there, so that we at least have different perspectives so that we can make an intelligent decision. I mean, after all, we are talking about the future of our humanity. And, to me, it's worth all the risks.
And
it just is.
Why did they pick you, Alex? What was special? Is there a DNA or blood group, or is there a reason why they picked you?
I was one of them at one time before I got caught up in the life cycle here.
Okay.
Oh. I was one of them.
Okay, so that's why. Steve, you've got a question.
No, you kind of answered my next question. I was going to say, when you're off-world and you look down and you look at humanity, if you like, for want of a better word, if you had the power in your hand, would you press a reset button, or do you still feel there's hope for us? I mean, have we gone too far? So would we need to be kind of just a reset button, so to speak, or do you reckon like that we still haven't reached the point of no return there?
Well, no, I don't believe we've reached the point of no return. And I don't know that I would ever believe that. There have been times, guys, where I might have pushed the reset button, just and recently, as a matter of fact, when when you hear information about the United States government funding ISIS, and then you look at the brutality and horrible things that ISIS does to people, and here is our government that's supposed to represent freedom, the light on top of the hill, doing exactly the opposite of what it purports to be. And there's numerous incidences of this in history. There are times where I get so angry I want to just do the reset button. But look at the growth that humanity is going through, and the lessons that we are learning here, and the knowledge and spiritual growth that we will take from this experience will literally change the galaxy. There is no one who says different on the benevolent side. They realize our potential is magnificent. And if you look, and if you were up in a craft looking down at humanity, and you were able to see all of the suppression that is going on the planet from every direction, and how people and families still love each other, they love their children, they protect their neighbors, they look out for each other, there are so many good people here who continue to struggle and do the right things and carry love and goodness in their heart. It's all worth it. It's all worth it. This regressive, this Wall Street pirate shit, this horrible negative side, that's not really who we are.
No.
It really isn't. And if I thought it was, I would push the reset button, but I know it's not.
Yeah, I agree. The energy that we're vibrating on, or most people are vibrating on, is not exactly the vibration we should be on. And that's because it's been manipulated. Where do you think, or what do you think of Vladimir Putin? Do you think Putin is part of the chess game? Or do you think he is actually making a change and deciding to move away and to make a difference?
Well, for me, the jury's still out. But I have to admit, I'm rather impressed with him and China in taking their stand against the Western corrupt banking system. I am. They've absolutely taken a stand. And on the surface, I'm extremely impressed with that. He's also a very, very good chess player, by the way.
Well, and, yeah.
And I think ultimately he's going to look after his own, which means Russia.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I cannot say that with any clear conscience that our government has any interest in protecting us at all here in the States.
And on your crystal ball, or what you've been told by your sources, where do you think we're going to go? I mean, is this just a slow progress over the next, say, 100 years? Or I mean, can we say the next 5 years, the next 10 years, that we're going to see a change? Do you have any kind of time that you've been given?
Yeah, between now and 2017, the end of 2017, maybe the first quarter of 2018, and I've addressed this, I think, in the last webinar, that the river of change is going to be dramatic. There are going to be dramatic shifts in humanity, and how the planet works and operates, very, very quickly. It's a lot of things are coming to a head, not to mention the fact that, our entire solar system is now moving through the galactic plane, of the galaxy, which is a enormous plasma field, which is going to change and alter our DNA. So there is a lot of things going on. Most of it, 90% of it, is positive, but unfortunately we need to get past this 10% of really rough patch, despicable ugliness that we have to let go of And that's going to be a real growth opportunity for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because, spiritual growth is hard work because you yourself have to do the work. You have to look at your shit. You have to own your shit, just like all of us are doing, myself included. And, there is no one you can blame that crap on. What you believe and why you believe it is entirely up to you. To choose not to forgive is totally on you. So, these are all things we're going to have to confront.
Yeah, yeah. No, I totally agree. We had Laura Eisenhower on last year, and Laura said the window of where all the turmoil is going to be is between 2013 and 2017, and then after that, there's going to be kind of changes taking place, and which kind of ties in what you're saying there as well. Obviously we know that the elites are trying to rush everything in, because they know people are waking up, and the last thing they want is to have a global, conscious, aware population that know the game and what's going on. Now, personally, I don't think they'll be able to stop it no matter what they do, because it's the energy of the planet. People are beginning to wake up. There's people that I've come across that I'd never thought, and Steve, you said the same thing. Even if they only wake up to a level where they're not happy with the government, they know they're corrupt, and they know there's something going on, and I'm not happy with it. Even on that level, that's part of the awakening as far as I'm concerned.
You're absolutely right. There's a great song by Jerry Rafferty that whenever I hear it, it reminds me of the powers that be of the New World Order. I changed the lyrics, but it's called Change of Heart by Jerry Rafferty.
Yeah.
And it's basically about, they simply refuse to have a change of heart. They've been wearing a mask so long that they believe that that's truly who they are now, and that's it. That's the cast, the die that they have cast. And it's a very interesting song. So.
And do you believe that with this DNA change that you're talking about, do you believe we're going to have certain abilities that we've been told we're going to have?
Well, we already have the abilities. It'll be easier to use. It'll be more readily available. There's some great psychics. There's some great mediums. There's some great healers on the planet already.
Yeah.
There are some great visionaries already on the planet. Great speakers. Great intellects already on the planet. That will only exponentially get better as more and more people awaken, because that knowledge and experience is locked in the DNA, and the higher self knows it's there. It's just being able to hold. Once the DNA triggers and turns on, we will be able to hold more light. The frequency of our bodies will rise, making our antenna and our ability to tap in to cosmic knowledge that much greater, and there's no stopping that.
And we were told by one of our guests, and I don't know whether you agree with this, that CERN was designed to stop the energy hitting the planet or restrict the energy in some way so we wouldn't benefit from it. But obviously, for whatever reason, on multiple occasions, CERN has been taken out. Do you believe that? Oh yeah, I do. I absolutely believe that it's been taken out. And my understanding is that they were trying to open up a portal into lower fourth density and bring in very, very dark energy. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. To solidify, solidify the regressive presence and the lower vibration on the Earth, because of its effect on the future of the galaxy. You see, it's like, any team, any chain is stronger except for its weakest link. Well, Earth is that weak link. And when you look at it, what it's really about, it's not the planet, it's our consciousness. And they found the weak link. They have been doing their best to take advantage of it, to abuse it, to tweak it, manipulate it, and they have been somewhat very successful. But, that's over. And now what we're doing is we're playing out the reclaiming of our power, the reclaiming and raising of our vibration and our frequency, and basically giving these guys the boot and say, get the hell out of here.
Yeah, yeah, and it's there is a mass awakening. We're seeing that on a day-to-day basis. Steve, you got more questions there for Alex?
I do, yeah. Well, we are seeing an awakening, because probably like yourself, Alex, Alan and I, we do our best on a daily basis when we're not doing the show. In our other lives, if you like, we do trying to educate people, and I have to say, by degrees, you can see people opening up ever so slightly. And as Alan mentioned earlier, like, we don't want to awaken everybody up to everything that's going on all at the one time, because it would just be I think their download system would just crash with all the information. Or else.
Well, but you know what, when people are ready, the information comes to them, or they find it.
I totally agree. Totally agree, yeah.
Yes.
But that's what we're kind of like, I see us as like gardeners. We're just going around planting seeds. And like, we just plant the seed. This is what I do all the time. I give someone a piece of information. I don't generally expand on it if I know they're not open to it, but I plant the seed, and then I just let nature take its course. And at some point in time, not a lot of times, but sometimes it has happened where people will actually come back to me and say, do you remember you said something to me about whatever the subject matter may be? And they'll say, I've heard this and I've heard that, and like, that's fine. But even from what I see, just in my circle of people who I mingle with, it seems like it's taking a long time, because I know you mentioned things are going to kind of escalate in 2017, but like, this has been going on for a long time. I mean, we know people who have been doing research into a lot of this stuff for 20 and 30 odd years, and you're kind of thinking, will it ever come to a head? I mean, I'd love to see a change. I'd love to see a positive change in my lifetime. It would kill me. Well, it wouldn't kill me, but it would kind of anger me to think that we're doing all this work and trying to educate people and help people, and there's a lot of other people that are doing a hell of a lot more than we are, and you would like to think that in their lifetime they will live to see change, the fruits of their labour, rather than, just maybe their children or their great-great-great-grandchildren,
I think the farmer is a great analogy, and when people come back to me, those who said I was a nut, a kook job, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and they're like, hey man, I'm sorry, I've learned this and this and this.
Yeah.
What I always try to do when they walk away is add a little bit of fertilizer and maybe point them in another direction and leave it up to them to figure it out. As far as, the speed of things, guys, all we can do is what we can do.
Yeah.
And, I've carried a huge burden all my life about this information and my experience. And there came a time where I simply couldn't carry the burden. So what I had to do was just say, okay, all I can do is put the information out there, and I gave it away for years, just gave it away, because it wasn't about the money, and it's still not about the money, and there is no money. Hell, I've been homeless for 5 years. How could this be about money for me? But in giving it away, you just let it go, and you just allow it to go where it needs to go, and have faith that your service to humanity at some point has some value or has some worth, and that's all you can do. It's like raising kids. You can put them in the house, but once they're out on their own, they're going to make their own decisions.
Yeah.
And you can be there to help them get back up and be there to give them, a dose of reality, but ultimately they have to do it themselves. And that's how I've had to look at the information. I don't know exactly how this is all going to play out. I mean, if it were up to me, this would have been done 15 years ago.
Well, I think you're right regarding the karmic energy that we put out there. I mean, we are all doing it. Everybody who's involved in waking people up and doing what they're doing on radio shows and helping other people, we all kind of hope, I suppose, in the back of our, with the right intention. I mean, we're doing this with the right intention. We're not looking to get anything back, but just to see, as Steve said, the fruits of our labour, and to see some kind of light coming down the tunnel where we can see the change taking place before we pass over and we have to ask to go home to wherever we have to go home to. And it would be nice to see it. And if you say that, I mean, we've had different dates banded around from 2035, from, as you say yourself, 2017, 2018, up to 2035. I don't know whether we'll be around in 2035, but we'll just have to see. But if the planet is speeding up in vibration and things are speeding up, well, then hopefully it won't take too long, because the way things are going at the moment, we know, as we say, the elites and the NWO, they're doing things, they're making mistakes, people are seeing it. Maybe that's part of the storyline. Maybe that's what's supposed to happen. Maybe these mistakes are there to be made, so when people see it, they realise that, okay, now I know that we're in a control system.
Yeah, I believe that we will all take away the knowledge that this will never happen again to us, and maybe to no one else in the galaxy. But let me also add this, that those of us who are light givers, light helpers, or service to others, I believe that in previous lifetimes we've done this type of work before, and that's why we chose to do it. Because, we know how hard it is, and we've had the temerity and the experience to know, how to do this work, to try to help wake up a civilization. Maybe not the monetary piece, because most of them don't use monetary systems, but, that's been a kink. But, now we have that experience. But let me say this to you. 20 years ago, or 23 years ago, when I first started talking, I would talk to an audience of 5 or 10 people, and I mean deer in the headlight looks. What are you talking about? Okay? If you look at what's going on with the YouTube, the internet, these young kids growing up, it is moving so fast, it is like the Mississippi River. It is just flowing. Now, it may seem slow to us because we've been in this for a long time, but in reality, the knowledge is getting out, and it's virtually everywhere for someone to find if they want. We're back in the day, hell, we didn't even have email,
Yeah.
That didn't even exist. You had to send a telegram.
And you know what's the kicker as well? We can see the flaws in the system. Maybe because we have open minds, we can see the flaws in the system. And we know there's a lot of people out there who are not getting it and they don't see it. And it's when our kids, or maybe our kids' kids, look back at this time and go, you mean you didn't even see this? You couldn't see what was going on? They look at this, they look at people at the time who weren't aware and might think, how the hell did you not see what was going on when it's right in your face? That's what I think would be the kicker for me when our kids or our grandkids will look back at this time, maybe in the history books, when history tells the real truth, and it'll be pointed out to the kids, and the kids be saying, you mean you didn't see this? You didn't realise this was going on? Why didn't you see this? Because me and Steve say this all the time about our kids. When our kids grow up and they become adults, and they say, well, what were you doing at this time? At least myself and Steve can say that we were doing something to try and educate and open people's minds. But when other kids are asking their parents, and you go, well, we were too busy watching TV and EastEnders and Coronation Street and Crossroads and all that kind of stuff, So we are going to be kind of happy to say that we tried our best and we did what we did, and we did as much as we could to try and make a difference. Hopefully what we do is making a difference. But every little bit helps, as they say.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree with anything there, and I have nothing to add to that. I think you nailed it right on the head.
Cool.
But it is what it is. It is what it is, and we continue to do the work we have to do now, in the present, and tomorrow, and the next day. And that's all we can do.
And it's like, to be honest with you, it's like we feel we have a moral conscience to do this. We don't get paid. If anything, it costs us more. It costs us more money. Then obviously, we fund it ourselves, and we appreciate donations from our listeners. We do get donations in, and that is a massive help to help to pay the bills and everything else. So a big thank you to our listeners, and we're humbled by our listeners making donations to what we do here. So we are very grateful that we do get donations in. But we feel we have a moral conscience, and we've said it before, and myself and Steve have talked about this. Sometimes when you're in the kind of truth movement, if you want to call it that, you hit the brick wall. And everybody hits the brick wall at some time where you think, oh, you know what, we're not going to do this anymore. We've had enough. That's it. It's end of story. And all of a sudden, this energy comes in from somewhere. Is that right, Steve?
That's right.
And we get pushed down the river again. for another period of time until we hit another brick wall. So wherever the universal energy is, I don't know what it is, but it's definitely giving us a push down the river.
I agree. I mean, that's happened with me, and it's some of us have paid dearly to do this kind of work. There's so many people that I know who have just paid very, very dearly. They've lost more than money and homes. They've lost loved ones, and there's just a level of compassion for humanity to do this work. And I truly believe that the ones that do it, they have that level of compassion and empathy for humanity. They on some level clearly understand the bigger picture here. And this is why we do it. Yeah. This is why we do it.
Yeah, I don't know where the energy comes from, but we've hit that brick wall, and the energy has just come in and we're off again for another couple of years or whatever the time period is. But Steve has more questions for you there, Steve.
Yeah, we do have more questions. And this one came in a while ago, Alex, from one of our listeners called Grambino. And he says, question for Alex. Does Alex believe in the jinn? Does he think the jinn are archons? And do benevolent ETs believe in one creator?
I can only speak for the A's. I know that other contactees, I believe, have addressed this themselves. But the A's refer to what we refer to God as isness. There is some force, something, which is more easily defined on other dimensions and yet still unexplainable to them. There is some force that literally creates and holds all the dimensions in place, that allows free will to exist, that holds a frequency of love which is far greater than anything else. There is something. What that is, even I don't have a clue. But I can tell you that when I pressed Phaseus and Morine on this, their response is, we call it the isness because it is, but we don't exactly know what it isn't. But what we do is we work within the guidelines and the laws that it has established. And that's what it is, guys. There clearly is something.
Yeah, sometimes though, have you seen the films or the movies, Alex, Men in Black?
I have.
Yeah.
Years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, sometimes I kind of feel, I get the feeling, sometimes you speak to different people and they tell you about the universe and the galaxies, and it seems like it's just a massive, it's so big it's incomprehensible. But then you have other people saying, well, it's not as big as we're led to believe. And sometimes I wonder, again, I know this makes absolutely no sense, but sometimes I wonder, are we like that little locker in Men in Black, where we think we're in a massive universe, but in the reality we are so small, and we're like, let's say, in a snow globe on a desk somewhere, or maybe we are sometimes we're led to believe we live in a massive place, if you like, but I think sometimes it may be a lot smaller. I know that it probably doesn't make much sense.
No, it does. But, the answer to that is I don't know. I do know that whatever we're dealing with right now, this battle between good and evil, between light and dark, has to be fought. Because until I know, that we're locked up in a little locket or a dangly chain or something, where I'm at the present is where I'm at in the present. And, we have to take care of business in the present, because this is where our focus is, and this is where we're creating our reality.
What's your take on the rapture and the kind of biblical side of things? I don't want to get down to religion, but obviously there's a big belief about the rapture coming. We had Malachi Martin, who was a priest, who talked to Alex Jones. Not Alex Jones, Coast to Coast. And he was saying about Planet X and things supposed to happen, and the third secret of Fatima and all that kind of stuff. Have you looked into that at all?
No, but gosh. No, I'm not familiar. I've heard of Malachi Martin. I didn't hear the specific interview with guy who does Coast to Coast.
George Norrie.
That's it. Not Alex Jones. You know, my concern is that people are going to be put in such a state of fear that they will surrender their sovereignty and their free will and allow themselves to be put on a regressive spaceship, not knowing it, and they will be taken out of here, never to be seen from again.
Which is what we've heard from another guest who said...
Because I have, you know, if you look at, you know, when we talk about the rapture, okay, the book of Revelations, here's my take on the whole thing. If anyone has done any research on the Sinai Bible, which you can only get from the British Museum, and they're, as they interpret it, they put it online. I'm not aware that you can actually buy it. But the pieces that they've already translated and put online, if you compare that to the King James Version, there are already over 14,000 huge discrepancies. So, you just think about, you know, those of you listening, just think about that. If you've researched and studied the history of the church, the Roman Catholic Church, why would anyone trust them with anything?
Well, I agree with you. Yeah.
It's just like, you must be kidding me. You know, why would you trust them with anything?
We were told that the part of the Bible, if not all the Bible, was written by the Piso family in 200 years after the fact.
It's possible, and you know, there's no less than 7 popes who have said Jesus never lived. It was a myth.
Right. Okay, well...
Yeah. So, but that's a whole other discussion, but 7 popes are on the record as having said that.
And this is why we talk about the fluid belief system. And our fluid belief system is basically just saying to people, keep an open mind, and then if some new information comes in, be able to change what you believe if new information comes in that updates what you know to something new. And you should always challenge your belief system, which is healthy, which means you carry on learning. But some people are stuck in a closed mind belief system, and no matter what you do, you can't shake them from there. And that's fine, but they're not going to learn, they're not going to move on.
Well, critical thinking is a perishable skill. And many people have chosen to let that perish. So they choose not to do any critical thinking, to constantly evaluate and reevaluate where they're at, who they are, what they believe in, why they believe it, etc. And again, those are your choices, and those are people we possibly could never reach. But that's okay. You know, that's not necessarily the mission. The mission is to put the truth in front of everyone and let them choose to do it. And that's all we can do, guys. That's all we can do.
Yeah. Well, if we kind of say, well, we always say there's 3 truths. There's your truth, my truth, and the real truth, which what some people say. And it's very hard. The problem is, Alex, is trying to find the truth. What is the truth?
Well, in the end, that's all that will be standing, will be the truth. Everything else will fall away. Everything else will fall apart. You know, but in the end, all that will be standing will be the truth. And, you know, we'll all get there together, guys. We will all get there together, I hope.
I'd love to be able to have the real history book of life, of what happened throughout history, and know that I'm reading the truth.
Whatever wasn't burned at the Library of Alexandria is probably somewhere hidden in the catacombs of the Vatican.
Yeah. In the library, the Vatican libraries, well locked up.
There too.
Okay, Steve.
Yep.
Yeah, we have a couple more questions as well. This question came in earlier on. It's from Hope, and it says, question for Alex. Does Alex believe we will experience a mass ascension into the 5th dimension sometime soon?
The answer to the first part of that is yes, absolutely. As to soon, I don't know the timeline.
Yeah.
Tomorrow would be great.
Yeah.
Tomorrow worked for me.
Just before tea.
Yeah, just before tea time, yeah.
Even right after tea, you know. Tomorrow would be fine.
Okay. Where are we now? This question came in from one of the listeners on the People's Internet Radio. When we were talking about incarnation or reincarnation, he was wondering, would suicide have any effect on someone's incarnation? Do you know?
I know that everything everyone talks about says that it's a very negative thing. Even the Native American shaman teachers, the Toltecs, the Chaldeans, the Magi, they have all said the same thing as well. The extraterrestrial perspective on that, at least from the A's, is if you've made a decision to leave because of your exercising your free will, you have made a decision to leave. And how you choose to do that is entirely up to you, because there is no sin.
Yeah.
Okay?
That makes
We're not
sense.
born with sin. That's just not it. So it just means that you're done with this particular lesson and you're choosing another.
But just touching base on that, surely by you taking your own life means that you haven't, there's maybe some lessons that you're supposed to learn, but you haven't learned because you took your own life.
That's possible, but are you damned to hell and all that nonsense? No.
No, we actually did hear before that if you do take your own life and you haven't learned whatever lessons you were supposed to learn, that you will come back down again. That you cannot ascend until those lessons have been learned.
Yeah.
Well, what makes you think you have to do it here? Why couldn't you go somewhere else and learn those lessons?
Well, they do say
somewhere warmer would be nice.
Yeah. Well, they do say Earth as a planet is a very hard planet to learn lessons on. And there's a lot of people, again, going back to this kind of energy, people saying, I want to go home. There's a lot of people saying that. Now, I don't know what they refer to as home, but it's definitely, being away from the physical plane on this planet.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, Earth is like pea soup. It's like trying to walk through pea soup.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very difficult, and the lessons can be very hard here because of the consequences and how quickly they come down on you. But guys, I can only give you the A's perspective. That's all I have. That's their perspective. Is that if you choose to leave, you leave. You can go somewhere else. If you choose to do those lessons somewhere else, you absolutely can do that. It doesn't necessarily mean you come back to Earth and have to do it. There are no written rules about that unless you go back up that tunnel of light and allow yourself to be reprocessed and sent back down here via the archons.
So just clarify that for people, that when they do pass over, when they see the tunnel of light or the light, they don't go towards it. They just ask to go home.
No, you turn around, you turn your back to the light, and you will see the universe. And at that moment, you will know. And all you have to do is say or think, I want to go home. And bam, you're gone. You're home. You are where your spiritual, first spiritual or resonant incarnation is or was. That's where you will go.
Okay. Well, that's good to know for people who want to remember that. Quite interesting.
And we're also talking higher dimensions too. You could leave and go to another dimension, wherever that place is for you. Okay? You don't stick in third density because we're already multidimensional. All you're doing is shedding your third density body to move up into another frequency.
So do you and the A's believe there is karma, and that the people who are doing nasty stuff on the planet down here, there has to be some kind of karmic judgment when they leave?
Okay, well, they've never used the biblical terms of judgment or anything like that. They've always referred to the word consequences. There are consequences which they would have to reap and own. So, but they don't use the words like karma or judgment. But there are consequences. And those consequences can also affect them in other dimensions, in other lifetimes, in other places that have nothing to do whatsoever with Earth.
Yeah. Well, because what we have come to believe as of today, but tomorrow that might change, is the fact that because we had Ralph Ring on the show, who used to build anti-gravitational aircrafts in the 50s, and he's an expert in natural law, and we asked him about karma, and he said, of course, it's the universal law, because we are frequency, we are energy, we vibrate on a frequency, and I kind of call it the kind of karmic boomerang, and if you put out negative energy, well, it's going to come back to you. If you put out positive energy, that's going to come back to you. So it's kind of the law of attraction, really, at the end of the day. So, and if that's the science and that's how it works, then it's not so much a spiritual thing, it's just the way energy works. I don't know.
That's exactly right. And so, we're talking about the same thing. It's just that the A's refer to it as it's something different. Their verbiage is different. Their perspective on looking at it is a little bit different. Okay?
Yeah.
But since we're on this topic, religions have done this, metaphysics talk about this, about karma, all of these teachings, they plant in our brain that Earth is like a prison. That Earth is a place where you get stuck unless you become perfect. That is a metaphysical blind, guys. That's a metaphysical blind. All right? Those seeds have been planted from other religions and other teachings by regressive extraterrestrials, that unless you do exactly what we tell you to do, or you do this exactly this way, you'll never get out of here, you'll keep coming back, you're going to be stuck here, and that is not the lesson of the higher self at all. Okay? You can do this someplace else, you don't have to do it here. But, it's important to note that all of this creates more anxiety in people, because now everybody thinks they're stuck because they can't be perfect. Well, what is perfection? How the hell can you possibly how could you possibly be perfect in a world, a planet, a system like this that is so set up against you? It's not possible. Okay? So we just literally have to change our perspective on how we look at ourselves, how we look at life, and seek those higher spiritual questions and answers. Earth isn't a prison. It was never meant to be unless you, in fact, believe that it is a prison. And then it is for you. It's that simple.
So it's perception of everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything. It's all perception.
Okay. And obviously, what we try and do is say to people, you don't have to, it's not about believing everything that you hear. But as Aristotle said, the mark of an educated mind is to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. You need to be, at least to be able to entertain it, because that means that you are you're reevaluating the information and your belief system. But if you can't even entertain something, then if you have a closed mind, then you won't grow, because that's how we grow, because we ask questions, we review what we know and then question it. And obviously we have to have the facts. We can't just, base it on an opinion, but we have to be open-minded, and this is why we call it the fluid belief system. And I think that's very important to grow spiritually and to grow in knowledge, is just to be able to entertain things, to say, okay, let me have a look at that, and I'll research it and see if that's valid and if it kind of resonates with me.
Critical thinking is a perishable skill. And one of the questions I once asked Visayas was, if you had one question to ask humanity, what would it be? He responded immediately, why do you believe what you believe? That's the one question he would ask everybody. Why do you believe what you believe? Do you even have a reason for believing it? Do you even know the reason you believe it? That's huge, guys. That's huge.
Well, people do say, I don't have a belief system, but not having a belief system is having a belief system. Because their belief system is not to have a belief system.
Of course it is.
Oh, Steve, question.
And of course they have a belief system. They're part of They're part of a system. They're part of a community. They're part of a family. They have a belief system about that. Otherwise, none of that would be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, totally.
It's doublethink.
Yeah, it
That's
is. Yeah.
all that is.
Steve, you got questions there?
Yeah, I have another question from Joan. This came in earlier, Alex, and Joan said that she hopes Alex has an insight into the future. And can you tell us exactly how we should educate, help, advise, and support the people within this shift?
Be an example. I mean, that's all I can do, is to be an example and try to make myself available for people as best I can. But, you know, at the same time, I'm going to be going through the shift, and whatever lessons I still have to learn, I'm going to be going through, just as you will, Joan. I think, you know, the old Boy Scout motto, you know, prepare for the worst but hope for the best, that's all we can do, and hope that we've covered all the bases, because if we haven't, then whatever we haven't dealt with or we weren't aware of, you know, we ourselves will be confronted with those same challenges. So, you know, the best answer I can give you, and the only answer I can give you, is to try to lead by example. But we're all going to go through this together no matter what.
Yeah. And just going back, Alex, you did say that between the 16th and the 20th of March, we're going to, well, it's taken as a given that we're going to go through some very extreme weather. And it'll only get progressively worse as we move through. And, you know, one of the things that there's an excellent gentleman who's done a lot of research. He works very closely with the Navy. His name is John Moore, Moore, here in the States. And he's done many talks. He has his own radio show too, where he's talked a great deal about the earth changes that are coming, and he's had many naval personnel, you know, look at the map that's been created, and they've tweaked it to the point where now he knows what the United States Navy is expecting to happen to at least the United States and the earth. I think it's worth checking out. There are many people, you know, who are talking about this, and of course we're all poo-pooed, because it's not serving the agenda of the dark side, of the dark messiah, to, you know, give people a heads up so they can begin to prepare. You know, they want you to crash into fear, because then they're in control. You know, I will rescue you. I will save you. You just need to take this chip. You need to take this mark, this tattoo. You need to, you know, swear allegiance to me, all this other horseshit. And many people will go for it, you know. As far as, you know, what it says, many of the elected will be deceived. I don't believe the elected are going to be deceived at all. I think they're doing the best they can to keep their families from being murdered. So they're going along with this agenda. I think many of them already know what's going on. But they sold us out. They sold us out a long time ago, and now they're absolutely stuck. Absolutely. We agree 100%. But what about storing food and the likes? Would you say that will be a good thing?
I'm sorry, say that again?
With the extreme weather that's coming up between the 16th and the 20th of March, would you recommend people store food?
Yes, I would. And yeah, absolutely. At least several months. It's supposed to begin somewhere between the 16th and the 20th of March, and then continue on. But that's when it's really supposed to start. And everybody on the planet will be like, "What the hell is going on?" You know. And it's because of the Planet X, Hercopolis, Nibiru, whatever name you want to give it. It's because of the dwarf star, its presence. Just understand that.
Yeah, and we're going to be able to. We should, again, from what you said, we should be able to see this very clearly around the end of April and beginning of May. Yeah,
well, you know, on YouTube, there's several people who have used their cameras at certain longitudes and latitudes that are able to see it for a very brief time at sunrise as a planet comes up. You can see it clearly behind our sun.
Which is what they're saying is the second sun. And a lot of people are taking photographs of that. Alex, we have about 5 minutes left. What way, summing up the interview that we did and the information, what would be your advice to people based on what's going on, in a kind of summary?
Oh. I don't necessarily want to give advice to anyone, because, we're all teachers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but what I am trying to do for me is to get my head straight, try to connect to my spiritual self as much as possible without relying on the A's or anybody else outside of me, okay, because there's no guarantees anyone's going to save me. But what I'm trying to do is empower myself to my absolute ability to be prepared for the changes and to move into a higher vibration. That's all I can do, and prepare to help my family, should I be reunited with them at some point, to be prepared to help them, and continue to share with folks the perspective that I've been given. And I would absolutely tell you to research other perspectives. Somewhere in all of there, you will find what it is you're looking for, and that will empower you to not only continue to improve your spiritual connection to Source, and empower you, to connect with all of that your spiritual self and you are, but it will also put you in a position to help others, again, by example. And ladies and gentlemen, that's all we can do. If there's something else that we can do, to empower people and at the same time educate them to empower themselves where they can stand on their own, teach them to fish, to use the analogy, as opposed to you catching the fish for them, then I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Because, once someone stands on their own 2 feet and they have empowered themselves, they can't go back. They can't be enslaved anymore.
That's right. Once the curtains are open, they can't pull them back.
There you go. And I think that's where we need to focus on. I believe the governments are what we call the governments. They're all eventually going to collapse because, they're going to implode on themselves because they're so corrupt. And, and when that happens, we'll probably be the most free we've ever been, is when the governments implode. So, we'll see what happens. I hope to keep talking to you folks. And I wish people would stop bootlegging the webinars, because that's my only stream of revenue.
Yeah. Well, we will talk. I mean, we'll definitely do a part 2, Alex. But as you say, when you do the webinars, it is a fund to kind of pay your bills, and we ask people not to actually to do that, but pay for the webinars if you want to go in and hear you, because that's your source of income to feed yourself and pay your bills.
That's it. There's nothing else. There's no net underneath me at all.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's important. Well, it's been a brilliant interview, Alex. I really enjoyed speaking to you and getting the information. And maybe in a few months' time, after March, maybe April, May, we'll do a part 2 if you're up for that, and then we'll see where we are with how everything is going. If we can do, if the Earth is still here, you don't know what the weather conditions are going to be like. But a big thank you for coming on. Much appreciated.
Okay, well, you're welcome, gentlemen, and I'd be totally open to that. In March, what we're looking for is primarily the jet stream coming down to the surface of the planet.
Wow, that's quite serious.
Yes, sir, it is.
Wow. Okay, well, listen, I'm going to pass you over to Steve. Steve's going to get all your details where people can find you and your webinars and stuff like that so they can log in. So, again, thanks, Alex. Over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Alan. Take care, gentlemen. You've been awesome.
Yeah, Alex, it's been interesting information. So, it's sparked a lot of interest on the chat rooms there. So, it's controversial. Maybe, it's not everybody's cup of tea. Some people, as we often say, they'll hear the information. It may not be, the right time for them at this moment in time, but a seed has been planted. And so maybe a little bit of watering, that seed may blossom, and people will then look back and go, I remember Alex Collier saying that. But anyway, in the meantime, if people want to find out more about your work, Alex, and maybe check out some YouTube videos, webinars, or a website, can you throw those links over to us?
You want me to just give them to you now?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well,
Okay.
you just call them out, and I'll stick them up on the chat room.
James Harkin in the UK has created alexcollier.org, and that's where virtually all the information is. And there are links and ways to email me there. Because of my limited internet, I have over 17,000 emails in my inbox, of which just over 2,000 are not read yet. So, and I try to respond, but I get far behind, because this is just a one-man show here. So, I will do my best. Please be patient. If you want to ask me something, I will do my best to get back to you. And, God bless everybody. God bless.